Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today. So let's get into WWE news stories coming off of last night's edition of Monday Night Raw on the USA Network as the build to Money in the Bank begins. Now, we're going to start off with a story talking about the USA Network and Fox because multiple sources are reporting that the USA Network and officials at the USA Network were not happy with Fox getting a big Hell in a Cell match for the Universal Championship this past Friday on SmackDown. Certainly interested in the timing of this story, considering that the USA Network officials, they're unhappy that Fox gets a big Hell in a Cell match on SmackDown this week. What did we see last night, though, on the USA Network on Monday Night Raw? Oh, that's right, a Hell in a Cell match. Now, this story, this is why I wanted to start with this one, because this story wasn't really breaking yesterday. It broke Friday, Saturday. It was first reported by Andrew Zarian of the Mat Men podcast, and again, we'll get into the report in a second, but he was first to report that the USA Network officials, they were unhappy because once they saw this announcement, oh, by the way, because the announcement was made Thursday night, by the way, SmackDown on Fox, instead of having Roman Reigns versus Rey Mysterio Sunday at Hell in a Cell, we're having it on SmackDown, and the USA Network officials are like, wait a minute, why can't we get a Hell in a Cell match? Our ratings suck on Monday Night Raw, so why can't we get a Hell in a Cell match? So they're unhappy. They obviously voiced their concerns to WWE about this, and then wouldn't you know it, poof, suddenly a Hell in a Cell match appears this past week on Monday Night Raw. Wouldn't you know? Now, as I mentioned, Friday's Hell in a Cell match saw Roman Reigns retain the Universal Championship over SmackDown Tag Team Champion Rey Mysterio in the first Cell match ever to air on network television. Now, WWE had originally announced the match for Sunday's Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, but the decision was made last Thursday to move it to SmackDown. Now, as I mentioned, Andrew Zarian of the Mat Men podcast reported that the USA Network officials were unhappy with the Hell in a Cell match taking place during SmackDown. This is what Zarian had to say, quotes, "I can tell you for a fact that USA Network is very unhappy that the Hell in a Cell match is happening on SmackDown. I'm not going to say they are fuming, but they are very unhappy about it." Now, Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter expanded on this during the Wrestling Observer radio show, and he mentioned that Fox officials aren't thrilled with Peacock constantly being promoted on their network either, which they see as another rival streaming service. Now, NBCUniversal obviously has no issue with Peacock being pushed on Raw, but they were not happy with Hell in a Cell not being given to Raw and being given away for free on Fox on SmackDown. Now, the big issue with the Mysterio Reigns bout had to do with NBCUniversal's Peacock losing the match as it was nixed from Sunday's pay-per-view on Peacock and the WWE Network. NBCUniversal, of course, is the parent company of the USA Network, and NBCU lost the match because it was pulled from the pay-per-view and Fox picked it up, which is interesting when you think about it. So NBCUniversal, they're paying $1 billion for over 5 years for the licensing to license the WWE Network and getting all of these pay-per-view events, etc. They think, right, the big main event on Sunday is Roman Reigns versus Rey Mysterio. We're getting that. We paid for that match. We paid $1 billion, not for that match specifically, but for matches like that. That's our deal that we have with WWE. We're getting that match. And then Thursday night, suddenly, we're not getting that match? We're not getting the headline match for Hell in a Cell. We're not getting the main event. What people won't watch, Hell in a Cell. People will watch it, but certainly there wasn't as much excitement. They took their biggest match off it. They took the biggest match off the card and they put it on Fox. They put it on another company show. They'd be like, whoa. So you can understand from a USA Network or an NBCUniversal perspective, you can understand why they would be upset, right? You can understand that because they're thinking, right, not only are we not getting a Hell in a Cell match on Raw, so USA Network aren't getting that. NBCUniversal in general, our Peacock streaming service, they're not getting Roman Reigns versus Rey Mysterio. That's all going to Fox on free television. Why? Because I guess they wanted ratings, which we do have an update on that later on today as well. So you can understand their unhappiness, certainly. Now, I don't think in the grand scheme of things, like Andrew Zarian was saying, I don't think they're fuming. I think it's interesting that this report comes out and then wouldn't you know it, last night on Raw, we have a Hell in a Cell match between Bobby Lashley and Xavier Woods. If you think that those things aren't related, then good for you. But that's just not the case. They are absolutely 100% related. USA Network, oh, you're giving a Hell in a Cell match to SmackDown on Fox. NBCUniversal, oh, you're giving Fox a Hell in a Cell match. You're taking away the main events of the pay-per-view. Okay. And WWE goes, whoa, we'll give you a Hell in a Cell match on Raw. Don't worry about it. We were going to give it to you anyway. We were going to give Bobby Lashley, Xavier Woods. That feels a bit random. No. That was. We've been planning that for weeks. Yeah. Please continue to give us your billions of dollars. That's how that situation works. So I find that fascinating. Look, when the story says that, the USA Network or NBCUniversal are upset, they're probably frustrated. They probably voiced those frustrations, but they are all in with WWE. There's a lot of money from NBCUniversal being spent on the WWE, whether it's $1 billion for Monday Night Raw, whether it's $1 billion for the Peacock streaming service having the WWE Network on it. They are all in, and maybe that's their point, is saying, yes, you have this big deal with Fox, and yes, Fox paid you $1 billion for SmackDown, but we've paid nearly twice that for Raw and to have your network on the Peacock streaming service. So maybe we should take priority. Okay, maybe we should take priority here. And it's a good point. Money talks. Money always will, and money always has and always will talk. That's just the situation. Now, speaking on Monday Night Raw, because when I saw this, my head nearly exploded, let's be honest. If you're looking at this and going, what the hell is that? You're not alone. You're not alone, because Nikki Cross debuted her new superhero look during last night's edition of Monday Night Raw. Now, Nikki Cross reunited with Alexa Bliss to defeat Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax in a women's Money in the Bank ladder match qualifying match. Now, Cross cut a pre-match backstage promo and talked about how she's felt a spark inside of her as of late, following her recent wins over Charlotte Flair and Raw Women's Champion Rhea Ripley. She has been working on how to display her spark in her heart, and she's excited to share it with the fans. She went on to say that no matter how far down we might fall in life, we share the same positivity and spirit to win. Cross says she represents everyone and their shortcomings, and this new look embodies everything we have inside of us. Spirit. Cross controlled most of the tag team match on Raw and rolled Baszler up for the win because, of course, why wouldn't you? It's the most devastating move in all of WWE, the roll-up. Way more devastating than the pedigree, the tombstone, the AA, Stone Cold Stunner, Rock Bottom, People's Elbow, Spear. It's the roll-up. Of course, it's the most devastating move. Now, there's no word yet on what WWE has planned for Nikki Cross after this and what this gimmick really means, or if she's going to continue to team with Alexa Bliss. Of course, if we get any plans about that, we'll talk about it here on the channel. But Bliss and Cross will join Naomi and Asuka as confirmed participants for the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match on July 18, which will feature 4 more superstars yet to be announced. Now, before I get into just this nonsense, Nikki Cross's partner, Killian Dane, NXT superstar, revealed some details regarding this and seemed to imply that this might actually be her own idea. He tweeted, quote, "She had an idea and and saw it brought to life. Very excited to see what's next. Go, Nikki." Now, I would assume he's probably just being very supportive of his partner there. I don't know if they're married or not, but either way, that's by the by. What on earth is that? Let's get into it. What on earth is that gimmick? When I saw this, you can tell if you have any doubts who is running the creative for WWE, it is Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard. You know how you can tell is because that is not out of place in 1985, and that is where the creative lies in WWE today. It lies in 1985. I don't know if it's all of these, throwback podcasts that Bruce Pritchard does, but the creativity has not moved on. I recall, and I might be wrong here, but I recall, as the stories go, that Bruce Pritchard, Pat Patterson, God rest his soul, Vince McMahon, they were basically doing the creative of the WWE in the mid-90s. The new generation, all that kind of stuff. And the issue that they had then, in the mid-90s, 25 years ago, the issue that they had then was that the creative was too old. It was too 1980s. It was too cartoonish. So they had to bring in other people, outside ideas. And because of WCW, they were forced into going into a different genre of entertainment, if you will, going into a different element, creating the Attitude Era, having a bit of an edge, having a bit more of a contemporary feel, an adult feel. And here we are in 2021, and we're still getting gimmicks like it's 1985. And we have seen this over the course of the last 18 months or so, certainly last couple of years. And I don't want to blame it all on Bruce Pritchard. I'm a fan of Bruce. But certainly some of the gimmicks are just, they are so not out of place. Like WrestleMania 3 or something ridiculous like that. It's true. You've got Nikki Cross dressing up as a superhero. Previously, you had Shorty G. On Apollo Crews, you got on Friday Night SmackDown, you got Apollo Crews where I guess he's embraced his Nigerian heritage. Don't have a problem with that. But because he's embracing his Nigerian heritage, we've got to have a military general. Oh, yeah, he's got to have a military general. And what's next? We're going to have, Sergeant Slaughter turn against the United States, and they're all going to put over Hulk Hogan in the main event. This kind of gimmick is dumb. It is stupid. It is just, it's ridiculous. And it just, a flashback. This is the female Shorty G. That is what I saw here. The female Shorty G. That was literally the first thing I thought. And it's this weird insistence on stuff like this, cartoonish stuff. And I understand that they're maybe not catering to an audience of B or people like me. Maybe this is just catering to that child audience. Maybe they're thinking of merchandise. They're thinking of action figures. They're thinking of the little kids in the audience when they return to touring. They can see a superhero, and the little kid who's 5, 6, 7, 8 years old can look up at Nikki Cross and be in wonder and say, oh, look what I can do. Look at a real-life superhero come to life. But every time they do these kind of gimmicks, whether it's this Nikki Cross superhero thing, whether it's Shorty G, whether it's Ricochet. Remember when Ricochet was on the main roster going, I can be a real-life superhero. I'm going to prove that superheroes exist in real life. And remember that promo he would deliver every single week? Oh, superheroes, they're real. And I'm going to prove they can come to life. I'm going to prove they really exist. It's not just in comic books. Superheroes are real, guys. And in the same vein as Shorty G, in the same vein as the Ricochet, awful superheroes are real gimmick and promo, in the same vein as this, unfortunately for Nikki Cross, everyone will say this is a terrible gimmick. And then 6, 8, 9 months down the line, they'll go back to their normal selves. Nikki Cross will go back to her normal self and will say, wasn't that gimmick terrible? Oh, wait, everyone knew it was going to be terrible. It's this weird fascination with gimmicks like this that I want to be super positive, and Shorty G, I want to be super positive. I want to be an inspiration. I want to be a role model. And every single person at the time says that gimmick is awful. And then we try and convince ourselves, well, maybe the talent can get it over. I mean, it's horrible creative, but maybe the talent, they're really talented. Maybe they'll get it over, and maybe the audience will get behind it. Maybe it's just so ridiculous that it might work and all this kind of stuff. And we almost convince ourselves to try and believe in it. We try and convince ourselves, well, let's give it a try. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's wait and see how this plays out. But we're refusing to learn from any past mistakes. And that's the thing I think that's the most frustrating, is when has this worked? When has this worked? And we see this stuff all the time where these gimmicks come up and we go, that's a terrible gimmick. And then after a week or so, we'll go, well, we'll give it a try. And then 6 months later down the line, they're on main event, they're losing. And then suddenly Nikki Cross comes back and goes, I'm going to ditch this. I lost my identity for a while, and we're going to give her a renewed push. Because that's how this thing works. It's stupid. And I'm a big fan of Nikki Cross. I'm glad to see Nikki Cross being featured on Monday Night Raw. Don't get me wrong. And she will do her absolute best to get this over. And who knows, maybe she might actually be able to pull off the impossible and make it work. But it's stupid. It's dumb. Can you imagine, seriously, can you imagine in, a real smart crowd, this gimmick working? No. It's 1980s, early 1990s WWF. It's on primetime wrestling or something. It's stupid. It's so outdated. And again, it's this 1985 booking philosophy of we need gimmicks, we need characters. It's 2021. It's stupid. It's just so stupid. And you just roll your eyes. You roll your eyes. And Raw was good last night, I thought, for Raw. That shows how low the bar is. That you have something like this show up on the show and you go, well, it was still a good show. That's how low Raw's fallen. Now we have an update when it comes to SummerSlam, talking about Edge versus Seth Rollins, a first-time ever match scheduled for August. Now WWE is reportedly looking to hold a first-time ever match between Seth Rollins and Edge later this summer. As has been previously widely reported, the working idea for the SummerSlam main event is to have John Cena challenge Universal Champion Roman Reigns. WWE officials reportedly want to load the SummerSlam card up, and now WrestleVotes is noting that they are also planning on stacking the SmackDown side of things with a second major matchup, that being Edge versus Rollins for the first time. Now, it was recently reported that WWE does have plans for Edge to wrestle at SummerSlam in a babyface role. It was reported last week how Edge is being advertised for several SmackDown dates over the summer, beginning with the July 16 SmackDown episode from Houston, Texas, which of course is the first show back on the road with live fans in attendance. Now, Edge has not been seen since the WrestleMania 37 Night 2 main event, which saw Roman Reigns retain the Universal Championship in a triple threat match that also included Daniel Bryan and the Rated R Superstar. Now, Seth Rollins defeated Cesaro at Hell in a Cell on Sunday, moving their recent series to 2-1, with Cesaro still up by 1. Now, there's no word yet on if that feud will continue until Edge is brought back in mid-July. This one, I think a lot of people have seen this, and a lot of people predicted this before even this story came out, because it makes sense. If you're going to have Edge come back, and he's going to be working as a babyface on the SmackDown side of things, you have to look at the heels on the SmackDown roster, and you say, well, he's not going to be facing Roman Reigns. Reigns is going to be off against John Cena. Who else is there for him to face? The options are, frankly, quite limited as to who Edge realistically could face, because Edge is a big deal. He's a big draw. The Edge match at SummerSlam means something, right? So you look at that and you say, well, who else is he going to face? Seth Rollins is only kind of the only option. It's a big match. We haven't seen it before. It's a match worthy of a stadium show. And on top of that, to be honest with you, you look at Edge versus Rollins, as I mentioned before, it makes sense. The story is already written in there. It makes total, complete sense. 7 years in the making. Monday Night Raw. Was it New Year's Eve? On Monday Night Raw in 2014, you had the Authority. They'd just been removed from WWE at Survivor Series by Team John Cena after Sting's debut, and it was a cutting-edge peep show with Christian and Edge. They were hosting that, and the segment had on there, I think, Seth Rollins and other members of the Authority. That didn't include Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. And what happened? Seth Rollins threatened to stomp Edge's neck into the Money in the Bank briefcase. He threatened to stomp his head into the Money in the Bank briefcase, potentially paralyzing Edge. Remember, at the time, Edge was not cleared to compete, and if he took one bump, he could die or be paralyzed. Seth Rollins threatened to break Edge's neck and force John Cena into an ultimatum: either I break Edge's neck, I paralyze this man, or you bring back the Authority, because John Cena had the power to bring back the Authority. So Cena brought back Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, and seemingly they were waiting because they were backstage and they came out with some champagne glasses. I remember it like it was yesterday. So that story is 7 years in the making. That's already built in. So you can play up that. You can just say Edge going, I never forgot that. And that was the moment that spurred me on. That was the moment that started my comeback, because I thought, I'm weak, I'm nothing. This guy threatened to end my, possibly my life. He certainly threatened to paralyze me. He threatened to break my neck. And I never wanted to be that vulnerable. And again, and I vowed to myself that one day I would come back. And when I came back, I would seek my revenge and I would face you, Seth Rollins, in the middle of the ring. So that's what I'm going to do at SummerSlam. It's built in. It's built in. It makes sense. So, I'm very excited for that. I was quite surprised, though. I saw on social media, some people were not for this match. They really were not for this match. Oh, Seth Rollins, he's average. Or Seth Rollins, I don't want to hurt him to hurt Edge. I think we can get past that now. The Seth Rollins, he hurts people thing, that was obviously a series of unfortunate instances, right? Whether it was John Cena and the broken nose and the Sting issue and all that kind of stuff. I think that's very unfair. And certainly, I don't think Edge is going to be taking buckle bombs at SummerSlam. If he is, then Edge, Seth Rollins, and the WWE, they're all nuts, because that just shouldn't be happening. We know not to do that at this point. I don't even know if you're allowed to do buckle bombs in WWE for that very reason. So let alone Edge doing it. So I don't think he will, but it's going to be a very exciting match and something that I'm looking forward to. Now, this is an interesting story, isn't it? Because this has been something that really started off this past Friday in the build-up to SmackDown. The news broke that Karrion Kross and Bronson Reed were at the Thunderdome, and they were competing in dark matches prior to SmackDown for WWE officials. Well, certainly interesting, because Karrion Kross, the NXT champion and the NXT North American champion, you can see him on the screen there, worked last night's main event tapings at the Youngling Center before Raw hit the air. Now, Bronson Reed took on Drew Gulak, while Karrion Kross faced Shelton Benjamin. What was interesting, though, is that Scarlet was not with Kross, but the two NXT champions did have their respective championship titles with them. Now, these matches will air Thursday on WWE Main Event. Now, there's no word yet on if this will lead to a main roster call-up for Kross or Reed. In the past, not really much in the recent past, but in the past we have seen NXT stars occasionally appear on the likes of shows like maybe Main Event or 205 Live, all that kind of stuff, and it hasn't really equal to an actual main roster call-up. It's just something that they've done because they happened to be backstage at the event and that kind of stuff. I don't know. I'll be totally honest. I don't know where this is going. It certainly is interesting, and as I mentioned, Reed defeated Gulak and Karrion Kross defeated Shelton Benjamin. This is just the latest news because, obviously, as I mentioned, they competed in dark matches on Friday. I think it was Bronson Reed faced Bobby Roode and Karrion Kross faced Dolph Ziggler, and reportedly it was because WWE officials wanted to get a closer look at both guys. I still find that really odd. I find that really odd because Why do they need to go to the Thunderdome to get a closer look? Why does Vince McMahon or Bruce Pritchard or whoever need to get, or the creative team go, well, they need to compete before SmackDown, then we can get a closer look, or they need to be on main event, then we can get a closer look? Isn't that what the Performance Center is for? Isn't that what NXT is for? If you're saying that the Performance Center or their work on NXT doesn't equate to, well, we need to see him in the Thunderdome environment, or we need to see him in this environment, you're basically saying that NXT or the Performance Center isn't fit for purpose. Isn't the whole point that you would go to the Performance Center and you would go and check them out? Isn't the whole point you would see them on NXT and you go, right, I know what they can do, this kind of stuff, right? I just find that really odd. I find that really odd. It's going back to the old school way of doing it. The same way that you would work OVW or FCW, then, okay, we're going to call you up, you're going to work a few dark matches and a few SmackDown and Raw tapings, and then we'll debut you in a couple of weeks on TV. It feels really odd. Really, really odd. Now, speaking of odd about all of this, I mentioned it, is that Karrion Kross was on main event, but there was no Scarlet. And we have some information as to why there was no Scarlet. Now, Scarlet of NXT is reportedly considered for a main roster tryout later this week. Now, as I just mentioned, NXT champion Karrion Kross wrestled Shelton Benjamin at Monday's pre-Raw main event TV taping, while NXT North American champion Bronson Reed wrestled Drew Gulak. Now, Scarlett was not with Kross, but both champions had their respective titles. Now, in an update, F4W Online is reporting that there was talk of Scarlett receiving her own tryout on Friday, likely at the SmackDown taping. There's no word yet on why she was not used in Kross's corner for main event. Kross, Scarlett, and Reed were also brought to SmackDown last Friday, reportedly to work dark matches in front of officials. It remains to be seen if these NXT superstars are planned for the upcoming call-ups. This is alarm bells. Alarm bells are ringing here for me, because this says to me that Vince McMahon, the brain trust of Bruce Pritchard and that creative system for the main roster, they are looking at Karrion Kross and they're looking at Scarlett, and they go, oh, we want Karrion Kross, but we don't want Scarlett. Or we want Scarlett, but we don't want Karrion Kross. Now, people for years have said, well, maybe when they get called up, Vince McMahon will fall in love with Scarlett and she'll be off doing her own thing, and Kross will end up doing his own thing, because Vince McMahon is like that. He has done that for several years with certain people. Mark Miro and Sable. Sable was the star there, but they did it, remember, with Miro or Rusev and Lana. You know, Lana and Rusev get caught up, and eventually you could just tell Vince McMahon was going, oh, God damn it, pal. You know, Lana's the star there, and he breaks them up, and he wants to get them paired off with Dolph Ziggler because Lana's the star, and you just know that Vince McMahon will be looking at this and he'll say, oh, Karrion Kross, he's a big guy, he's an impressive guy, but that Scarlett, she's the money there, pal. She's the money there. You know for a fact he will. So this is alarm bells are ringing here, because you can see a situation where, and again, WWE does this because they change things from NXT, things you get attached to, or things that work, or things that get these characters over, the gimmicks over, whoever, get the superstars over, people that the audience latches onto, and they go, I like that gimmick, I've invested in that gimmick. They change things. Why? Because they have to. Because Vince McMahon has to change things. Because Vince McMahon cannot hack a gimmick that gets over in NXT that wasn't created by him. If it was created by the NXT creative team, it was created by Triple H, it was created by whatever, and they get caught up to the main roster, oh, they can't be popular. No, we have to create it. The WWE creative team has to really get these guys popular. So he could see a Karrion Kross and Scarlett go, no, Karrion Kross, you'll be on Raw, Scarlett, you'll be on SmackDown. Why? Why not? Why not? Because Scarlett's really the star, not Karrion Kross. Now, again, people might say that. People might say, well, I agree. But the gimmick for a long time here has been Karrion Kross and Scarlett. Right? That's the gimmick. So it's concerning that they're receiving their own separate tryouts. Because why would they? Why would they receive their own separate tryouts if they're going to be together as a team? That doesn't seem to make any sense to me. The logical explanation as to why they would receive separate tryouts is because they're going to be separate entities on the main roster, which is just bizarre, incredibly bizarre. It's this alleged creative team strikes again. Now, Money in the Bank, the build to Money in the Bank began last night on Monday Night Raw, and we have some matches made official already, and some participants for the Money in the Bank ladder match coming up for Money in the Bank in July. The show will have a WWE Championship match, which will be Bobby Lashley versus Kofi Kingston, which was announced on Monday Night Raw, which, to be honest, I think a lot of people predicted, because they've been planting the seeds for that one for a couple of weeks with MVP speaking to Kofi Kingston backstage. I think it's probably just going to be a one pay-per-view kind of deal. Obviously, the issue is almost with Money in the Bank, isn't it? Is that it's there in July, but they're already focused on SummerSlam. They're already thinking about SummerSlam, and you're seeing all the promo package, you're seeing all of the VTs about heading to SummerSlam, August, Allegiant Stadium, all that kind of stuff. We're already heading in that direction, but we've got Money in the Bank to get to first. So I think Lashley versus Kingston, I think, is an interesting match. I think it's fine for a one pay-per-view kind of deal. It puts Kofi Kingston back into that main event scene again, which he's been flirting with the last few weeks on television, whether it's facing Drew McIntyre or pinning Bobby Lashley like he did a couple of weeks ago. And I'm glad for it. They invested a ton of time in Kofi Kingston. That's what really bothered me about, Kofi Mania wins the WWE Championship, and he was so protected as WWE Champion. He did not do jobs. He beat everyone. Daniel Bryan, Samoa Joe, Randy Orton, beat Randy Orton like twice in a row, something like that. The guy was put over and over, and he had one of the best win-loss records during his time as WWE Champion. He won, and he won, and he won, and he felt believable eventually being the WWE Champion. Then he lost to Brock Lesnar and just went, okay, I'll be a tag team wrestler again. And you invested all of that time, all of that television time, and then just poof, gone. So why not have him in the main event picture? Certainly, you don't have many of them on Monday Night Raw. You don't have many people that can step up into that WWE Championship picture. So I'm glad to see Kofi Kingston in there. I really am. Now, in other news for Money in the Bank, last night's Raw saw Riddle defeat Drew McIntyre to qualify, while John Morrison defeated Randy Orton to qualify. We also saw Ricochet defeat AJ Styles to qualify for the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. Two more superstars qualified for the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, as I mentioned, as Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss qualified by defeating Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. It was also noted how Asuka and Naomi defeated Eva Marie and Doudrop. We'll touch on that in a second. For their respective Money in the Bank ladder matches as well. So the men's Money in the Bank ladder match was certainly really interesting, wasn't it? Because it was almost like the night of upsets, right? Then it was the night of upsets, and that you had all of these people have these upsets to qualify for the match, which was quite interesting, to be honest. As to who will win the triple threat match next week, we'll touch on that at the end of the video, but it's interesting. I still think that Drew McIntyre is going to win that Money in the Bank ladder match. It seems set up to be heading in that direction, doesn't it? It certainly does seem to be heading up that the stipulation at Hell in a Cell for McIntyre losing was that he never gets to challenge again for the WWE Championship while Bobby Lashley's champion. Well, if he wins the Money in the Bank briefcase, that overcomes that issue, right? Gets a bit of momentum back on McIntyre's side. And I think most importantly as well is it has McIntyre's opportunity at a championship, whether it's the WWE Championship or Universal Championship, in the bag, but he doesn't need to be in the championship picture then, which I think would be the best thing for McIntyre. You're still firmly established, McIntyre, main event guy, but he can step back for a little bit. And I think that's the right thing for him to do. We saw Jinder Mahal maybe kind of tease getting involved. It may be the triple threat match next week, or maybe even the Money in the Bank ladder match. I still think that McIntyre-Jinder Mahal feud is going to happen. But I wouldn't be opposed to McIntyre winning that match and then just feuding with Jinder Mahal after Money in the Bank. Again, get him out of that WWE Championship picture, but also still being established as a main eventer. I think that's the way to go for McIntyre. Now, that wasn't the only match announced on Monday Night Raw for Hell in the Cell. For Money in the Bank, there's so many pay-per-views for Money in the Bank. One is a Hell in a Cell rematch, which is Charlotte Flair challenging Raw Women's Champion Rhea Ripley for that Raw Women's Championship after Rhea Ripley got disqualified by hitting Charlotte Flair with the announce table hood at Hell in a Cell. Bear in mind, we saw like 2 or 3 times last night Randy Orton did his backdrop on the announce table. Nothing, no disqualification there, because it's stupid. It's still a stupid finish, but we're going to get a rematch. We're going to run it back at Money in the Bank. So, well, I mean, the match is good. The match is always good between them. That finish was just dumb. It was just absolutely ridiculous. So stupid. Now, it's been confirmed. We knew it was going to happen anyway, but Piper Niven's new name has officially been revealed this past week on Monday Night Raw. Doudrop. WWE has confirmed the name change in a backstage segment with Eva Marie. Now, in fairness, I still hate the name. Don't get me wrong. I still am not a fan of this name at all. But the way they basically did it on Monday Night Raw is they're having an interview backstage. And Eva Marie, they said, the interviewer goes, "Oh, Eva, what's this? What's your protege? What's her name?" And Eva Marie forgets her name, goes, "What's your name?" And Piper Niven's about to say Piper Niven. And she goes, "Oh, no, I remember." And she goes, you can say it. And she's about to say Piper Niven. And then Eva Marie looks up and down and goes, "Doudrop." And Piper Niven, as you can see on the screen there, she's like, "What? Doudrop? What a stupid name." So, I mean, they kind of... the thing is, the way some people are looking at it is they're saying, well, at least they're acknowledging it's a stupid name, and the storyline is that it's a stupid name. Just because you acknowledge it's stupid doesn't mean it isn't stupid. The fact, if anything, it's worse. It's worse that you know it's stupid and you're doing it anyway. How weird is that? How weird is that? They're going, okay, she's going to be called Doudrop. Everyone goes, that's a stupid name. They acknowledge it on Raw, she's going to be called Doudrop. And even the commentators and Piper Niven herself goes, that's a stupid name. Why are you doing it then? If you know it's a stupid name, why are you doing it? That's like being on a diet and eating at McDonald's going, this is stupid, I'm going to put on weight, but I'm going to eat it anyway. You'd go, well, why? That doesn't make any sense. So the name still sucks, even if they, played it around like she knows it's a stupid name and they even tried to say that she was Piper Niven. That would work, though, if they didn't have every single Raw announcer and commentator act like we don't know who Piper Niven is. So again, that kind of falls apart. The logic is completely just not here, non-existent on this one. Oh, Doudrop's a stupid name, we're going to give it her anyway. She is called Piper Niven, but the announcers don't know, and the interviewer doesn't know, even though the viewers do know. What? What? And again, I know some people on social media go, no one watches NXT UK, so no one knows who they are. People do, because everyone knows who Walter is, and it's on the network. You actively promote it during Monday Night Raw and NXT and Friday Night SmackDown as well. And people will go, wow, other people had character changes. Isaac Yankem turned into Kane, and all this kind of stuff. Well, yeah, that was in the process of a couple of years. Okay, last week she was called Piper Niven, and she was known in the NXT UK brand and on WWE's roster page. WWE's active Twitter account has tweeted about NXT UK. They cover NXT UK when it's on Thursday nights. They have spoken about Piper Niven in the past, right? They've actively tweeted Piper Niven is facing this person, and then suddenly she's Doudrop. I get people get repackaged, but that's, it's illogical. This whole thing is illogical. Kevin Owens looks to be taking some time away from WWE, it looks like. Kevin Owens put out a tweet yesterday after his loss to Sami Zayn at Hell in the Cell saying, quote, I fought like hell, now I need a little break, I'll be back soon. Thank you, guys. So it remains to be seen how long he's going to be away from WWE for. This might be just a play-up of the injuries that he suffered at Hell in the Cell. I don't know, again, if he legitimately was injured at Hell in the Cell. Maybe he was. Maybe he did legitimately dislocate his shoulder. It's a big blow to WWE going back to touring when they're going to need all hands on deck, and then suddenly Kevin Owens isn't available. So time will only tell how long he's going to be away for. Hopefully not that long. Hopefully as we're returning to touring, as we're getting back to live fans, Kevin Owens returns, but that would suck if that is the case. SmackDown ratings, I want to touch on this briefly because we did speak about it yesterday, because yet again, the overnight ratings don't really tell the full story until the full ratings come out. And finally, yes, SmackDown did draw over 2 million viewers for that Hell in a Cell main event. According to PW Torch, SmackDown with that Hell in a Cell main event between Roman Reigns and Rey Mysterio drew an average of 2.045 million viewers on Fox, according to Nielsen via PW Torch. This final number is up 6.07% from the overnight viewership that was released on Saturday morning, which was an average of 1.928 million viewers. This number is also up 5.2% from last week's final SmackDown viewership of 1.944 million viewers. Friday SmackDown drew a 0.54 rating in the key 18 to 49 demographic. This is up 12.5% from the 0.48 key demo rating that last week's show drew. So they'll be happy with that. They will be happy with that. The SmackDown episode is essentially flat from the same week in 2020, and the key demo rating is up 8%. So I guess it worked. I guess it worked. WWE can say, look, it was a success. It was over 2 million viewers. The key demo rating is up 12.5%. Is a significant amount as well. They'll say, see, it worked. The ratings grab work. They got ratings. It just makes you wonder, though. Imagine they'd have done this with 7 days. Imagine they gave themselves a week. Imagine they actually made this announcement last week and they said, no, we're not going to do it at Hell in a Cell. We're going to do it on SmackDown, Reigns versus Mysterio. And they had 7 days to promote it on social media, on television adverts and all that kind of stuff. Imagine they'd have done that. Now, maybe they didn't do that because the USA Network and NBCUniversal would have just gone crazy. Maybe they needed to do it at the last minute. But just think of the rating they could have done. You have to always think of what could we have done to make that better. If you'd given yourself more time, that would have been great. And finally, we have some things announced for next week's Monday Night Raw. We've spoken about Raw, but next week's Raw will feature a strap match between Elias and Jackson Riker. The former tag team partners have been feuding on Raw for the past several weeks. Last night's Raw featured a backstage segment where Riker announced the match to Mansoor, who approached him looking for some advice. I could care less, frankly, about any of that, so let's move on. Next week's Raw will also feature a second chance triple threat qualifying match for the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. Randy Orton, Drew McIntyre, and Raw Tag Team Champions AJ Styles have been announced for this. I think McIntyre wins that one, to be honest. I think Randy Orton and AJ Styles probably will be feuding going into Money in the Bank, and then eventually we'll have the Raw Tag Team Championship match at SummerSlam, RK Bro versus Styles and Amos. So I think Drew McIntyre wins, and I think Drew McIntyre wins the Money in the Bank ladder match in general. So those are the matches announced next week for Monday Night Raw. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of these WWE news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. It really does help us out here on YouTube. Get the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.